Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is a video that I hope will help some people. This is me just talking briefly about the new laptop that I've picked up before we get into benchmarking it. If you'd like to skip ahead straight into the benchmarking, then there's a timestamp down in the description. But I thought it'd be important just to mention where I stand on this. Because buying a laptop in 2021 is very frustrating, especially if you're outside of America. If you go into any YouTube review or written review, everything is pretty much based out of America. And this year, it seems like there are dozens of variants of laptops and specifications just within those laptops. So this is the ASUS ROG Scar 15. This is with the Ryzen 7 5800H CPU and the RTX 3080 8GB GPU rather than the 16GB, which is what pretty much all reviews are covering at the moment. So I thought it was important just to try and show some differences here. We have 16GB of RAM, and we are going to be using the MSI Afterburner to capture some of our frame rates and power wattage and power draw rather, and see where we go. So I also will just show you that I bought this. It's a lovely system, as you can see from the light show here, and physically it looks awesome with the small bezels. No webcam, mind, but it doesn't really appeal to me anyway, webcam. So things to mention then, being in the UK, I bought this from box.co.uk. They do still have this model in stock. It costs £2,000, and there is another version, which is what I think is the one that is in America that's widely reviewed, with the Ryzen 9 and the 16GB 3080 card. That costs £2,700 roughly. However, that has never been in stock for the last 2 weeks that I've been checking this website. For just another shout out to this website, fantastic customer services. I had to get in touch with them about the delivery a couple of times, and they actually went above what they said they were going to do. So really impressed with this website. I'd highly recommend buying from them. Just a note, with that new or the upgraded Scar 15, you can put an email address in to be reminded when it does come back into stock. But funnily enough, when I am recording this today on the 13th of March, I had an email saying they were back in stock, and I went to check 33 minutes later and they were out of stock. So these things are selling like hotcakes, and I think that'll be the issue with pretty much any decent spec laptop that's reasonably priced. You can go off and spend £4,000 if you want, but you're just not going to get your money's worth, in my opinion. 2,000, 2,500 is really where you want to be looking, in my opinion. You could also argue that it's worth just getting a 3070 GPU, which yes, you probably are going to get similar performance. But anyway, let's get in and look at this Scar 15 3080 with the 8GB of GPU and the Ryzen 7 CPU. First off, we're going to start with Red Dead Redemption. As you can see, it's probably one of my favorite games. And as you can see, we had to tweak the settings slightly on this to get a good frame rate. If I went to maximum on everything or ultra on everything, it would underperform, and I'd only get about 50 average frames per second. So I'm just going to show the benchmark here. And it performs quite well in the benchmark now with these slight changes to the graphic settings detailed in the video. So I'm not going to talk throughout the whole of the benchmarking, but I'm just going to share some comments. And whilst this game does run very well now, averaging in the benchmark at 65 frames per second, it does still dip under 60 through gameplay. I thought I'd just share a little bounty mission that I completed just to test this out. And as you can see, it performs well enough. And actually, whilst I was playing it, I was so focused I didn't realise that it dipped under 60 frames per second. It really varies as well. I can't quite put my finger on why it dips, whether it's too much action or lighting or particles. I'm not 100% sure. I thought it might be with lighting effects in dark areas, but that seems to perform better than expected for me. So again, all in all, very happy, although we did have to drop down a couple of the settings to get it to run this well.
This ain't good. Hold it! I'm a low man and you will stop. Take him out! Oh! Perdón. Hello?
Lindsay Wofford, I got here a warrant for your arrest, or the other thing, if it comes to it.
A federal warrant? No, that don't mean much in sovereign territory, mister. We've been beaten down and driven out enough. Let's make a stand, boys!
We need a man on the cranker! Get him! You heard, Lindsay? Get to your place! We lost the cranker today! Keep pushing, boys! Boy, you ain't gonna lose! He got Lindsay, but he ain't taking him! Move out, Raiders! You ain't gonna survive the Raiders, hear me?
Special hole for your kind. You see that coat? That's Lindsay Wofford's. We're gonna...
Peace of you, Mr. Wofford. Now, let's get you back. I'll be damned! You okay? What is it you want? Good God! Why are you doing this? What is wrong with you?
Why are you doing this?
What the hell? I declare you got the problem.
Okay, so moving on to Call of Duty, the latest game that's come out. And again, I'm going to try and test this at the ultra high settings, however, with ray tracing off. I have played it with ray tracing on, and I don't really see much difference in this particular game. So we are running here, and you can see we're averaging fairly good frames per second with everything maxed out, well over 60, well over 70, in fact, around about 80 frames per second. And I will also then show some clips with ultra low settings on, or just low settings, I guess is what it's called, and show you the difference there if you do want to boost those frames per second if you're rather competitive. But for me, playing on maxed out, that's where I am, and I'm not great at Call of Duty. I don't know the maps at all.
Enemy sentry turret detected in your AO. Enemy sentry turret detected in your AO. Enemy sentry turret in your AO.
Okay, so here we go. Everything now disabled or on low, and you can see it does bump up quite dramatically. Maybe not as much as I initially expected, but I could definitely feel the difference when playing this, that it was even smoother than before. Obviously, the monitor here, we're running at 300 hertz, which is really nice, makes everything nice and smooth anyway. But I did notice the difference here going from 80 frames a second up to about 110, 115. Everything did flow a little bit nicer, and I actually got a few more kills, but still just more running around just to test things out.
Hostile spy plane established overhead.
Tango down.
Multiple hostile spy planes detected.
Okay, so now we're moving over to Call of Duty Warzone, and I'm jumping into a Battle Royale now. And this is where performance is going to vary. I mean, you can't really benchmark Warzone because the map's so big. It's going to vary wherever you go. I'm trying to play here with everything maxed out, other than ray tracing. I did not turn that on. And again, I just wanted to get into some action pretty quickly here. So dropping in, and we're getting about 70 frames per second with everything on max.
You're up, soldier. Let's go. Going back to the front.
So now we're going to try Warzone again. Same map, same game, just dropping all the settings down to low or disabled, just to show you the increase in performance here. And it, again, obviously it does bump up, but maybe not quite as much as you'd expect. So again, we're dropping everything down to low. This is the same match of Warzone, and you can see there is an increase, but I've landed in a slightly different area, so it's hard to really tell what the baseline is. We are getting more frames per second here at now about 80, 85, where before we were getting 70, but it's really hard to tell whether that's just because we're in a different area and it would have been better if I landed where I was previously, I guess.
We lost that one, but we'll come back stronger next time.
So I'm not a huge fan of Warzone anyway. I do like Rebirth though, so I wanted to just show off the difference in Rebirth, because I guess with the smaller map we're getting much better frames per second. So everything is set to low here, and we're actually getting a really good frames per second on this, well over 100. More like 130. Sorry, the screen on the preview is quite small that I'm watching this back on. So it does fluctuate there. Obviously, it's dependent on how busy the area is, how much gunfire, explosions, and all sorts are going on. So I thought it'd be good to show that sort of lobby rather than the actual game. And then here's some of the game where we're looking at about 80, 90 frames per second, and again it varies where you are in the map. So now we're going to chuck the settings back up to high and show you what that looks like. Again, you don't actually see much change in performance here. We average well over 60 frames per second. Again, this is a very busy area, so even still it's well over 70 actually. So quite good performance all in all. I'm happy to play on high on Call of Duty Warzone. Massive fail coming up here, mind.
Allied cluster strike inbound.
So I just thought it'd be interesting to show some slightly older games, but only going back sort of a year or two. Here we have Doom Eternal. Everything obviously set out to max ultra nightmare settings, except for motion blur, because I hate motion blur. And the performance in this game is truly awesome. I have the dynamic scale set to off as well, so this is a true representation of how good things can look. And everything runs well over 100 frames per second, which is pretty critical for this game. Obviously very fast paced. I played about 20 hours of this when it came out, and I've kind of forgotten the controls, so the gameplay isn't its best, but you'll definitely get the idea of how well this runs with everything set to max. There we go, well over 110, 20 frames per second in a very busy area. So there we go, performance there in Doom Eternal is pretty awesome. I thought it'd be worth showing another slightly older game. This here is Rage 2, and it again runs exceptionally well, as you can see. I just wanted to show one last game before I sign off, and that is Dying Light. Obviously an older game, but with a lot of updates been thrown at it over the years, and obviously everything can run really well at high settings. Motion blur again off, but I believe this has some ray tracing elements enabled as well, and it just looks absolutely stunning now. Previously I had an old laptop that was a 1060 ASUS Predator 300, and I could run it on high, but it just did not look like this, and it did not run over 60 frames per second. I think here we're getting about 80, and in a second we'll go indoors and it'll run well over 100, and it just looks fantastic. Again, another game that really benefits from high frames per second and just really well made in terms of darkness and shadows, and visually very appealing. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you found some benefit in watching this. It's not the easiest buying a laptop now, and I put in hours of research, it feels like, watching different videos and reading different reviews and specifications. So hopefully this will help some people who can't find those high-end laptops that are being reviewed out there. Also, please feel free to hit the subscribe button below, leave a comment if you enjoyed this video or if you want me to benchmark any other games on this laptop. I also put out other gaming related videos, and we'll be ramping that up soon as well. So hopefully I will see you in other videos. Thanks very much.